You are watching the Policy Times evening show, Unleashing India Global Web Summit Series, post COVID 19 devastation. The purpose of this show, Unleashing India, was that the COVID 19 crisis that we are facing, the entire world is facing, has divided the world into two eras, the pre COVID and post COVID. The post COVID era that is going to come, this is the era of disruption, so that is another factor. And now people will have to live with the disruption, and I think people were never ready for a disruption of that the scale of corona that we just experienced and still experiencing. There is no solution as such as of now, but the world is looking up to 2021 because 2020 is gone. 2021 would be something that we need to restore confidence in public. We need to restore all services delivery, all the economic and social activity to bring back to normalcy. To talk on that, now one important part for a civilized society in the national reincarnation concept that we are discussing in this series is urban planning and urban development. Urbanization is a trend that is part of any civilized society. So this is a trend which is never ending and this will never stop, which means that the percentage of population going to urban areas for livelihood and income will only keep on increasing. As we are speaking, we have two experts, they will discuss more on that. So I'll quickly introduce our panelists and then I'll give a small remarks on this subject to go back and to give a fresh start to this. So the chairman of the discussion or the show is Dr. P. Shekhar. He is also chairman of Global Smart Cities Panel and author of more than 80 books on different topics connected with nation building and national development. And with him, we have two real experts who are working on the ground at the most important level possible that we can talk. Mr. Samir Unhale. Samir sir is the State Joint Commissioner of Municipal Administration in Maharashtra, and he was also as a mission director in Municipal Commissioner before, and still working. And with him, we have Dr. Megha Fansalkaman, who is a global expert on urban and rural development, and at a gold medalist graduate doctorate in system design for resource planning. I'll come back to the topic and then I'll hand over to Dr. Shekhar. The first thing, as I was talking, that urbanization is never-ending phenomena in a civilized society. Now there are two kinds of urbanization. One is planned and one is unplanned. And unplanned urbanization gives rise to environmental damage, disease, and the kind of slums that we see, an absolute human, degradation, I would call it, in terms of, healthcare, public services, and all. On the other hand, a planned urbanization gives a completely different phenomena of developing a society that values human being. So social, economic, and all possible kind of rights and civility possible. Now, most of these cases, India is also witnessing this crisis. We are in the mid of the crisis in terms of its human effect as well as economic effect is phenomenal, and we are still recovering. 2021 would be a crucial year. In terms of urban planning, what I found that water, electricity, healthcare, sewage system, these are very important discussion points that we should have. We should somehow stop developing slums and making them into a proper or developing proper housing and office infrastructure when we are expanding or developing cities. Our experts will discuss more on that. So a couple of challenges and solutions. Number one, I would really request our experts to also enlighten on these areas. Governance system. How do we improve the governance system in the area? How do we raise a lot of finance? Because finance is also an important factor to develop urban cities. Or how can we have innovating financing opportunities post-COVID? Planning is the most important part in city development. How do we do that? Then the environment, most of the cases we saw there is less impact or understanding or planning on the environment in a context in developing cities. How do we preserve and create sensitivity awareness towards that? That is also another area. Service delivery and transport. So these are a couple of areas I think we need deep discussion and a real solution, because we all know the challenges in front of us. Then how do we find solutions? So with this, I want to hand over to Dr. Shekhar to take the sessions forward.
Thank you, Akram. Today's topic is something of a different grade in the sense that its importance is very high. Now, we are also having expert who would want to make a rural into an urban area. It is not an urban to urban to enhance urban. It is also in terms of how do you make a rural to an urban. Because we cannot have a continuous stream of people coming from rural areas to urban areas and congest the urban area. Bombay is a beautiful city even today, Bombay and Delhi, if it had 8 to 10 million people. With 22 million and 24 million, it is a devastated city, independent of COVID. It is not a COVID devastation, independent of COVID. So why do people come? Because there is a less livelihood in rural areas. Rural areas do not have employment possibility, do not have good social structures, do not have academic structures, health, everything. So it is something where, of course, some of the things are a different level of discussion, different level of thoughts. But experts are always there to ensure that the thoughts are put today so that it starts coming at least few years later. So what I would do with that small background, I would run through a small presentation and so today's main topic is the name is Planning Urban Development and Implementation Strategy. We have Dr. Mega, an expert in planning, and Samir Runahale is a very good implementer, has done something on the grassroots level in very challenging environment. And I will introduce them at the end of the small presentation. So coming to the challenges, coming to the way we have to think, if India is to be, if we have to grow into its bigger challenges to how to make India a global destination, how to make Indians happy, and what is India? India is 100 times what the challenges of a relatively small country. People sit in small country and compare them to India, not knowing that the challenges here are high. At the same time, we cannot be a crybaby and keep talking that yes, we are 206 countries together, we are so much people, we are so much this thing. But we have to come out of it because the whole world is looking up on us for being guided, for being, being a role model. And now with all the challenges, if this topic we could have had independent of COVID, because this is an ongoing process. COVID has made life much, 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 much more challenging. Okay. This is a small thing which has really devastated economy, devastated human life, devastated, people's confidence, so many things which has happened. But the COVID itself is an invisible, unknown, small item. And numbers which it has done in actual ground is all less than 1%, which is much less than error factor. But in city areas, suppose hospital is totally crowded, people like Unhale and all have a tough time in trying to get people in municipal corporation, people others. It is pitiable how to take care, because even if it is one person suffering, it is our duty to take them out of suffering. It is no use going by these facts and figures and say that it is too small. Okay, even an injury in the leg, a scratch in the leg is to be taken care. But today, the way it is a scratch in the leg, but unfortunately, it has also been blown out of proportion. But taking care, nobody has to, give less importance. Now, this is a smart city consists of various brownfield model, greenfield model. Brownfield model is where we are having an existing one which is enhanced. Like in a small pothole. Many times people are died because of pothole. It has to be taken care of. Greenfield model is a thing which is coming from the bottom to top, where there's a plain area which is there. Today, why also I am bringing this out is, for when I started by saying that Bombay is a 20 million people, how can Bombay be ever come down? Yes, Bombay can come down if I build about 10 airports satellite cities around Bombay. So people are unfortunately dreaming of extending Bombay to Pune and making it a one single city. This will totally collapse. The economy will collapse. People will be the same. Anybody will take employment anywhere, and there will be so much of traffic between the two. There has to be proper identified greenfield smart cities around Bombay. Then there's a good schooling, good medical, good people will definitely go. There are people, all of us know that even if I name some place by this thing, something like Kandivali, 20 years back, Kandivali was like a, unknown this place. Today, Kandivali is better than Kolaba. And it is an isolated, almost like a satellite city, but inside the city. So because of that, there is a traffic high. Suppose there is something totally green in between, and then it becomes a city, and then it is encouraged. Then there is a lot of green field which will come, and I'm sure somewhere our experts will touch on that also. I'll not go through each of this slide to give more time because there's an excellent presentation being planned, being going to be given by Dr. Megha, and after that, Samir is going to talk on his ground level experiences and suggestions. So I will skip many of them to give more time to the actual speakers. Okay, this is one thing which I would like to talk because even Akram was talking of where the funds will come. The secured governance is something which is self-sustained, self-funding mechanism where through value and valuation the money can come. Okay, I'll not again go too much into the depth of it. That means if suppose I create a value and then that creates valuation, the valuation gives in urban area. Why urban is whatever we call as urban? Because values are high. Every smallest place is costing in crores. Okay, the difference in that is the one which will bring the good this thing. Today, what happened? Once it is there, it is the builder and others who take it up. But if it is done right at the planning level, as the rates go up, we start becoming a partner, but not by the partner in terms of the partnership, by a mechanism which is slightly a detailed one on secured governance. Then the whole concept of continuous funding will come, continuous availability of funds for this will come, and there are other ways also in which this can come. Now, let me introduce Dr. Megha more formally. She has done she's a brilliant student in her own rights and has done a lot of work in, many areas, including urban area. And she herself is an expert in this GIS, GPS technologies. And she has done a lot of original work in those areas and has done very immense this thing for government, for many of the international agencies, and also on the ground level she also works for rural people, rural artisans, their products to be taken and then taken. She has got huge awards for that, and I do not know how much how she gets this much time being a mother of two children, and I'm sure I would like her to say 1 or 2 minutes on that also, how she's listening. So first let me have Dr. Megha and then give her presentation, then Samir will talk in terms of the implementation challenges. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll put the presentation side by
Yeah,
side.
please. Yeah.
So the topic which I would be just discussing and we would be interacting today is inclusive cities. And we have been discussing quite a lot on smart cities, smart technologies, but we need to understand one thing. What is the meaning of the word smart? So I just, since we discussed for last 2 minutes, 3 times I heard the smart word. I was in a mission in Hyderabad in the World Bank mission, and one of my team member was having a different kind of phone. He had come from a Washington office, and I asked him, "Is it a smartphone?" So he said, "I don't know, but when I bought it, it was smart." So basically, this word smart is that it has all the features which a citizen should need, whether it's a rural area or an urban area. So whatever features we need in a phone, and if we have those features, we call it a smartphone. And similarly, if we take it to a city or any place where we live, it would be a smart city, a smart rural area, a smart village. If we have the access to the services, because that is, I think, the key thing a human being is required, and equitable access to common property resources, be it water, be it sanitation, be it roads. and there should not be any segregation or due to any reason, be it economic, be it caste, be it any other reason. And but there is, so I want to bring this extra cushion of thinking in the presentation today by calling it an inclusive city. So we'll have the presentation line
Yeah,
on
yeah, yeah. You can present. I think
oh,
lights are
is
good.
it's there, so I have to present it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought Akram will put the slides.
No, no. You can. It's better for you. Or you want Akram to do?
Yeah, I do.
Akram?
There's a screen share in the center, ma'am.
I know, yeah, I
Yeah.
know it. I'm not located my slide. So can you do it?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can. You
Let
can
me
put it on Akram. It is there in the.
Yeah.
yeah. Let me try that.
So since Dr. Shekhar was talking about urban and rural, one more thing comes into mind, that we have this Pura schemes, and so the objective of that scheme was providing urban amenities in rural areas. So apart from Pura schemes, we also have multiple other schemes which are going on with the government. Like we have a Spurti scheme, which is for artisans. We have a lot of NABARD schemes, which will work on the livelihood projects. We have a lot of World Bank. I've been working in the livelihood area with the World Bank for quite a long time, and then we have a lot of such schemes which help us to generate livelihood in the rural areas so that everyone doesn't depend on the urban cities. So when no, we go on the earlier slide. So when we say inclusive cities, the big slogan which we want to give is that everyone counts, and everyone means actually everyone, because a place becomes a home, a place becomes a city of your own dreams when you are being counted in that particular location, when you have some value, your existence has some meaning behind it. Next slide. Next slide, please. So if we see in most of the urban cities, and I've just given no earlier slide. So I'm just trying to portray, just to highlight Mumbai and Hyderabad. So we see there is a huge contrast, and almost all cities are having this contrast. There is a huge population within a city where the services are better and they are on a different level of livelihood index, and then there is a huge population living in slums, and especially in Hyderabad and Mumbai we see about 60% population is living in slums. Next slide. So globally, if we see, so Africa and India is going to have the chunk of the most urban population globally, and they are the most deprived countries. So imagine these huge population who come in slums are disconnected. They are in the crowded place of the countries, and they are living in the costly spaces. With this costly, one thing comes into my mind, that when I was recently doing a study on slums in Mumbai, and just going through the data, so it was observed that the slum people are drinking water at least 10 times higher the price of the middle and higher income level groups, because they do not have drinking water access, and that's why they are buying water and they are buying those gallons. So imagine poor people with less income are living a costlier life. So this is a very critical aspect for all of us, including we as urban planners and implementers. Next slide. So this slide, which I was just saying, that 90% of the global population is going to reside in India and all these regions, Africa inclusive, and they are somehow, as of now also, totally poverty-driven areas. And imagine with so many population, 90% of the global population in a poverty-driven area, what would a globe look like? How these cities are going to look like in the time ahead to come? Next slide. So this I was just saying that what makes a smart city, and so it is very it's an inclusive kind of approach where we have access to services, better health facilities, better transport, better livelihood, and another such good features, including happier index of living, and all these all put together makes a smart city. Next slide. So I just wanted to highlight a concept that we want to have inclusive smart cities. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult for us to go ahead. And when we say inclusive cities, we talk about differently able people. We talk about women, especially as far as the safety is concerned. We talk about the aged population, we talk about the children, we talk about access to hospital within a 10 to 15, 20 minutes of journey. Imagine a lot of people during the COVID and pre-COVID times have also collapsed in the ambulances because they could not reach to the particular destination. And so destination to work, destination for health, destination for school, destination for multiple things is really required. And that is why smart city has to be an inclusive city. And if we see the inclusiveness index of our cities, I do not find it more than 10 to 12%. We do not have jogging areas, we do not have bicycle areas. Even if we start walking on a footpath, not more than 10 meters we can walk without any hurdle. And so imagine even for a normal people, this is so difficult. So imagine for a differently able person or a person with a wheelchair, how difficult it's going to be to go anywhere, just not for the work, but to go anywhere. Next slide. So this is one of the very nice sentence which I like it always, that the city is only because of the citizens, and the city is what they are. The citizens make the city. There is no city as such. Next slide. So how do we do it? And if we see, there are three core areas of working. One is that in a city there are a lot of private entities, be it banks, be it industries, be it a lot of corporates, be it offices. So there has to be a linkage between them and the city in terms of the livelihood, and they have to be part of their planning process. We as an urban planner or as an implementer, we always see this is an there is an isolation between the planners, the implementers, as well as the people who are providing livelihood. So unless we put the jigsaw puzzle together, until they come together, it would be very difficult to actually generate a lot of livelihood and generate livelihood for all different kind of people. Then the another critical area is the as we rightly talked, that there has to be a overall participatory approach in the decision making. There has to be accountability in the system. And when we talk about public administration, accountability, participatory approach, and taking local governance and local people into the entire aspect of decision making is really important. And this then brings also to an important fact that data is really important. Many a times we see, especially in India, that most of the policies and a lot of planning and implementation is not done, which is data driven. And because of this, with lack of data, it is not easily possible to actually come up with the right kind of solution, because every slum, every city, every ward has a different kind of problem, different kind of composition. And unless we have a local data in mind, it is impossible to come up with right kind of solution. And then that is why we need this total accountability and governance built into the entire process. So if we see, these are a few critical aspects of a inclusive smart city. And of course, there is a huge role of citizens to be played, and how they use themselves, how the local governance, how the ward officers, how the CBOs within the ward, how the NGOs within the ward play their critical role into the entire decision making, how they bring the local problems of the community to be heard by the senior officers, and how they ensure that the feedback system exists between the planners, implementers, and as well as the users. So this feedback system is also very important. So in this particular slide, while there are other points, the key important points which I want to highlight is there has to be a feedback system. There has to be a participatory approach in decision making. There has to be an overall accountability in the entire process. And there has to be a linkage between the different institutions that or entities that exist in a community, be it a corporate, be it NGO, be it a CBO, be it a community-driven organization. So until we put all things together, until we make a inclusive decision-making format, which is understood by everybody, which is recognized by everybody, which is owned by everybody in an ownership model, it would be very, very difficult for us to make these cities a very inclusive smart cities. Next slide. So how do we do it? Because it's easy to say that we have to do this, we have to do that, but how do we do it? So a few pointers which I want to highlight in the discussion today is that only a local leadership can bring a change in the city. And when I say a local leadership, I'm not talking only about Nagar Sevaks, I'm not talking about the mayors or corporators, I'm talking about local leadership which emerges from the uh, ALMs, which emerges from the CBOs, which emerges from the Shezar Samitis, and all such institutions who are rightly connected to the citizens. The second point is we have to have a shared responsibility. We cannot blame the municipal corporations, the corporators, and so many, the government always for the lack of deliverables or lack of accountability. So there has to be a shared responsibility between the citizens, between the organizations who work with the citizens, as well as the government and the municipal corporation. And unless we work in a partnership mode, if you remember, one of the big SDGs is working with the partnership with a common goal. So partnership is very important because every deliverable has a value chain, and it is not possible for one particular stakeholder to cover the entire value chain. And I see this day in and day out that there has to be a partnership model where we do a shared responsibility to make this place a better place for all of us. Then in a city there are a lot of newcomers, there are a lot of migrant laborers, there are different kind of old population which have been living last 60 years, and then population which has just come 6 years old. So the requirement of different population is different as far as the age is concerned, and as far as the age in number of years they have lived in the city. And that's why it's necessary for us to consult everybody, develop this data around stakeholders, and that can be used as a planning tool or as a further as an implementation tool. Data in terms of health, in terms of slums, in terms of access to services, in terms of skill mapping. So there can be huge number of parameters on which data is required. But certainly we have to use certain smart tools to capture the data. It cannot be a typical survey kind of model now. There are different apps, there are different, and we know now even like almost everybody has a phone, be it a smartphone, be it an Android phone. So data has to be built through a very innovative model, and based on the evidence, we need to do the planning. And a lot of actions are to be done at the local level, because I always believe that local problems have a local context, and a lot of local problems can be solved only with the local consultations, with the local data, and with localized approach. It is almost impossible to have a blanket approach or a fit for all purpose policy, and that's why local planning makes a most important role in the entire decision making. Next slide. So basically, if we see what our community needs, our means inclusive us, all of us. So one, we need better access to services. Access to service is a huge gamut. It includes health facilities, it includes education facilities for different age groups, it includes livelihood facilities, it includes water, it includes sanitation, it includes X number of like almost 10 to 15 services, which are a basic right also. So access to services as per the government norms, be it LPCD water, be it proximity to the toilet within the meter area, be it access to water in terms of quality, everything is very, very important. Second, there has to be inclusive growth. We see in all cities, and especially in India and South Asia, and even East Southeast Asia, I would rather say, there is a huge difference between the urban rural, as well as within the urban. There is a huge difference between the rich, middle, and the poor and the poorest. And unless we have an inclusive growth, as far as the incomes in economic strata is concerned, as far as the physical disabilities or physical requirement is concerned, as far as the livelihood approaches are concerned, if we do not have an inclusive growth, we are sure to face a lot of problems as well as crime and other issues, because end of the day, everybody has a right to food and living. And if they do not get in a better way by a equitable distribution of resources, steal and get it is the only option remains. And that is why, as a planner, as an implementer, as a policy maker, the onus is on us, that how do we make this place, every place, an inclusive place for everybody. And the third most important aspect is the livelihood opportunities. And as Dr. Sekhar said, that why people coming to urban areas? Because there is a livelihood opportunity there. Livelihood gives income. Income gives you the other access, other services or other facilities what a person needs into his life, he and his family. And because livelihood opportunities are not there in the rural areas, they work for so many hours, more than hours. Us and the entire day, the livelihood, that is the minimum livelihood, which is not more than 150 rupees or 180 rupees a day. And in urban areas, even if you sell the comb in an entire day, you can even if you're selling a comb at 15 rupees, you can earn 1500 rupees per day. So people have understood that it is easy to sell a comb in Mumbai rather than work in 8 hours in a field in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan, Orissa, and even rural Maharashtra. So unless we have these things done for our community, access to services, inclusive growth, and livelihood opportunities, it it would not make a inclusive smart city. It would not make a smart city at all. Next slide. So what needs to be done? One, there is a connect with the community is important. Sitting in ivory towers, sitting in offices, we cannot design, develop, or implement any policy. We have to connect with the community. Community are the users whom we are working, whether it's a rural community, whether it's an urban community, whether there are self-help groups, whether there are livelihood societies, whether they are Shizar Samitis, and the real people whom we are creating the policies for. Second, as we said, inclusiveness is important, but there has to be economic growth. So all the policies should drive and support economic growth. Pre-COVID, post-COVID, everything links end of the day to the economic growth. Post-COVID, things have become really worse. The things are not as we wish to be. But yes, now together we can make the difference and we can bring the economic growth we are wanting. There has to be inclusive public services. There has to be access to just basic minimum toilet and water and electricity and life and a place to live to all of the people. And the last most important point is that civic representation, connection, participation is really important. So if we could do these four things in a very participatory approach, in a human approach, where we see ourselves into the people who are having who are living in the slums. Just imagine 60% population living in the slums, and with the very basic conditions, we do not have access to water. In the COVID times, we have seen very strongly that the sanitation, community sanitation toilets were the main areas of COVID, because people used to go there, and 100 people using 5 community seats. Imagine, I mean, there is no escape from COVID. Whatever you do, you can wear a mask, you can wear a burqa, you can wear anything. But even if you're going to that toilet once or twice, COVID is must for you. I mean, you cannot escape that. And that is why it is necessary that we work on these aspects very quickly. Next slide. I think it's the last slide. Next slide. So when I see in a colorful way, what is an inclusive city? Inclusive city is for animals also. We see daily in and out lot of animal activists and struggling for the animal rights. Uh, then we see a city where the aged population is living together. We see a mass transportation coming. We see individual cars moving. We see cyclists moving. Workplace can be closer so that we can drive around in an eco-friendly manner. A wheelchair moving around. So there are so many inclusive city should include all that apart from access to services and economic livelihood. I think that is from my side, and I would be interacting with the other panelists. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Meka. You never let us down. Excellent way put in. But these are all planning. Now, Samir, the person who is on the ground, okay, on the ground in what we call as rural areas, on the ground in Bombay, on the ground in various in-between areas. He has been in Nanded, he has been in Ulhasnagar, he has been in Thana, he has been in Bombay. So there are a lot of ground level situation and circumstantial situation. Some are political, which will not come in picture. but some are actual. Like whatever she is trying to emphasize is with all the thing we can do so many things because of a participative management. How far can we do? So Samir, you can explain in terms of how, in what way we can do. And as I again repeat, post-COVID means we are not expecting one day COVID has gone. It is already gone. As far as we are concerned, it is there to stay. It is gone or there to stay. So with that in mind, how do we get back? How do we get this urban life and duplicate the urban life in rural areas so the rural people need not have to come running to urban area? What she says is when so much of low income is there, how will the person stay? And that they have to come for survival, which should not happen. For that, we cannot glamorize the urban area so much people come and not de-glamorize the rural area. Because rural areas also there is an intelligent, there is a hardworking, there is a sincere persons who are there. So Samir, you may put it the way you want to put. Only with respect to Samir, maybe few minutes on you, and then on the work you have done, and what are your advice, suggestions on the way forward. Samir.
Very good evening, and thank you to Megha ma'am for a very wonderful exposition on how inclusive the smart cities should be. And inclusion is essentially being the most important parameter for any city which wants itself to be called as smart. So thank you very much for that. Actually, that's going from the title of our discussion, urban India or the cities and towns for that matter, they are both the canvas as well as the tools. In a way, the cities would be, I mean, as we know, the contribution of Indian cities or even the other cities elsewhere in the world is substantial in any economic consideration, any economic, calculations of any cities, country's GDP. In fact, globally, we feel that it is around two-thirds of the, mostly two-thirds of the GDP, global GDP comes out of the activities from the cities. And of course it also has a downside of maximum carbon footprint of the cities. So urban world, so 21st century will be an urban century. We already do celebrate. Actually, today is now 9th of October. So October, as we know, in the UN family is celebrated as an urban week, and in fact we have various activities going on to essentially highlight the significance and importance of cities and urban world in this coming month. Considering from the planning side, of course, planning is absolutely essential. You cannot think of a city which is not planned. There has to be a destination. There is a chain of causality that we believe exists. And then we take small steps towards this chain of causality, which we believe will lead us to the final goal that we have in our mind. So planning, yes, many times in Indian context, as we know, planning in cities is essentially land use planning. And there are various other aspects and elements of planning which also should now come up into the larger plan that we are making, the social planning, economic planning, infrastructure planning, and various other aspects of planning that we have. Now, in this current decade, we will be having climate change as an important aspect. We'll be having SDGs as an important aspect, and somewhere we will require a midterm at least vision as to how we would be going to reach those destinations. All these varied aspects of a city life, also keeping the land use planning as an important part of that. So that was my first take on that. That planning is extremely intersectoral because city is extremely interconnected. The urban life is so interconnected that we won't be in a position to think of a city on the one single dimension. So we require a multi-dimensional study of any activity that we'll be doing in any of the cities of the world for that matter. We'll be requiring interdisciplinary approach in the entire planning process that we will be having. And as was very rightly pointed out by ma'am, that there has to be a participation and engagement that is extremely crucial for any planning. Very often it happens that if a plan is made which is largely perceived, if it is perceived as something done by a group of technocrats and bureaucrats, there is not a resonance that it creates into the city. So, when we talk of, larger democracy, essentially then there has to be democracy in the planning process itself. So of course there would be certain processes, certain systems that will be done. As we know, in the statutory framework, there already is a provision of suggestion and objections, which are called in any plan. So obviously it's an opportunity to give an hearing and participate into that. And of course, given that, but probably in coming decade, as I keep on saying, the third decade of 21st century is going to be extremely crucial. It's going to be the game changer. If we allow this decade to slip out of hand, then we would be in a very serious position. So all of us will have to work in an extremely determined way in this decade. This is the make or break decade in front of us. So this, of course, engagement, citizen engagement, participation into the planning. It's not only land use planning, but the various aspects of planning, as was in fact, very rightly said that this is going to be the new thing that we should be doing in this decade, post-COVID or otherwise. It's only then we can harness the energy of the entire city. If what is the municipality? It's not even 0.5% population of a city for that matter. If you really look at a population of city, municipality will be not more than 0.5% of that. So obviously, what are the resources of the city for that matter? In fact, we had tried to do a small experiment on estimating the GDP of a city. Very honest, there is no methodology that exists. It will help you to find out the GDP of at a city level. So when I was working with the smart city, we had tried to create this methodology and of how to calculate the GDP of a city. So in precisely in economic resurrection of the cities post COVID, it also gives us a very important contours and traces as to how is the city engaging itself in an economic dimension. What are the sudden shocks it has suffered, and how is it trying to adapt and engage with this reality in the various segments that we see a city into. As ma'am said, in inclusion. So, for example, the dynamics of urban poor and municipality is very complex. It is sometimes in the morning we go with a social welfare program. Maybe it's urban party, maybe it's an evening we will be removing the street vendors or demolishing the slums. So it's a strange contradiction. It's a contradiction of how to balance and seek an equilibrium between the stated objectives and the livelihoods and the survival struggles of the urban poor in a city framework. So that also has a very important implication onto how, because if 50 and 60% of urbanite citizens are poor, it of course has an important implication onto how the GDP is going to take its shape post COVID. There's eddies of demand and supply that exist at small slum level, at community level, and it is this complex interplay of this eddies of demand and supply from small level they emerge into a larger economic activity of the city. So then when we look from the dimensions of land use planning, are we going to have greater concern and care for the urban poor when we are planning our city? So in fact, that's often an example that photo, of course, always comes there, that skyscrapers and slums. Maybe we will have to rethink our old concepts of zoning and the FSI and the reservations, and probably the traditional tools of planning, so to say, may have to probably innovate something in that which would be which will not constrain the entrepreneurial energies and the survival instincts, so to say, the tremendous dynamism and energy that we have in the cities of India. And it should provide a good way to flow this energy flows, and bring in a greater resurrections of the post-COVID economies, and starting of course would be from the smallest possible level. It will be the smallest house and the smallest nukkad and smallest slum. The economic activity will have to happen there. It's only from then it will emerge, and then the demand supply dynamics would come into interplay to bring back the economy. Of course, some economists are saying that post maybe second quarter of 22 or third quarter 21, I think things should come into space, and the concerns of economic issues should in a way fall in line. This was the first thing was, it is connected with this thing that is, as ma'am indicated, that inclusion is a very important part of how urban world should evolve in the coming decades. Substantially, a lot of thinking is also happening that there has to be a concern for sustainability of the cities. Cities are extremely energy consumption. They're very carbon footprint is very high. Energy consumption is extremely high in the Indian cities. The way our urban mobility is happening is mostly, in fact, that we do see right now that currently, of course, due to the concerns of this infectious disease, we have some restrictions onto the mobility. But even mobility in Mumbai, of course, it is just we always felt that the locals are the lifeline. But yes, we are using a national rail system for that. In a way, blocking the national rail, Mumbai being the biggest port. That's why the metro system that is coming up. The again, so the mobility and the concerns of footprint, carbon footprint will be an important element in the coming decade as to how Indian cities and maybe cities of the world will have to respond on this dimension of energy consumption. There has to be shift for conventional energy. Will have to be more policies which should be allowing this conventional unconventional energy, this renewable energy coming into the energy consumption pattern of a city. Of course, this is not exactly directly which is under the control of the current municipality, but one of the rationale of having smart cities was precisely this close coordination between the various actors of the city could come together. Because currently municipality, is more of it is more of political bodies, but other bodies who want to interact. So the smart city provided a forum and platform for this city level strategic thinking and interactions that they could have. So on the sustainability part and carbon footprint, energy consumption, efficiency, renewable, I think important direction will be required. In fact, infrastructure planning and if we one could really say the sustainability planning will also have to be brought into line, and those concerns will have to be reflected because more, intentions are definitely there. It's not that they are not there, but the instruments that we are using probably they're still probably still the older techniques and tools that we are trying to use, and therefore we are unable to create the impact that we are looking at. Cities are getting very complex and we require very fast responses. I think within the what the lesson that was learned in COVID was the ability of the organizations. It might be political organization, administrative organization, the police machine, the revenue machinery, even the political parties for that matter, the community organizations. They had to respond very fast. So the old notion of bureaucratic delays or red tapeism, they were absolutely thrown out of the window. In fact, the way the entire city had to respond when the patients numbers started rising and the lockdowns, how to reach out to the people. So this tremendous speed, the speed which has increased in this COVID response scene will have to be garnered and used for this better ability of the cities to contribute at an economic level, at a national level. The speed with which you respond. So, connected it to with to that is the ease of doing business, because I was told that we this as we are looking of an economic impact of how urban planning could help this thing. So in fact, a lot of things are being done, and more things need to be done in urban India for facilitate this ease of doing business. And here it comes here where it comes is this technology part of it. So if I really look at it, we are now in 2020. I don't know who will be into this 2030 Indian cities. So what would be there? We should be aspiring or envisioning what should be there in maybe say next 10 years for a urbanite in Indian cities or maybe cities of global south for that matter. Then yes, this is the in fact some the example is given of one very important city state in ASEAN region, in which there's a single interface for a citizen and and the entire the country for that matter, all elements of all the state national level. So this kind of fastness and seamless delivery of government services, seamless delivery of government services is something that surely help up. It will help the economy, it will help the citizens, it will remove the a lot of delays and wasted energies which is dissipated in this internal frictions of lack of seamless service deliveries for that matter. In fact, so projects are happening. In fact, you must be seeing that ease of doing business is a major focus that's happening for everybody. So precisely at city level, in the urban India level, in the planning, building permissions is of course a part in building in the any city when the city develops. Obviously, the a lot of focus is being put in for ease of doing business through for the planning permissions and the various processes that are involved, so that the energy of entrepreneurship, the dynamism is not getting constrained, and it can take its momentum to its rightful potential. So this also is an important element which will be happening, which is happening. And here the technological part, of course, ma'am did explain this very beautifully, that how technology will be a important part of the post COVID recovery framework of immediate as well as midterm plan that Indian cities should be having. In fact, many attempts is being done. In fact, the use of artificial intelligence was seen very strongly in this COVID tracking and track and trace programs. Even the Arogya Setu used artificial intelligence very well. In fact, bigger corporations, in fact, today itself, we had a very good interaction by the National Mission Director on the use of artificial intelligence and data into the cities. So the visions are now having, there is a lot of closer, cooperation amongst cities. In fact, we are also even we have certain informal groups which are having in the cities of Latin America, are connecting with the Indian cities, and cities from Indonesia at informal level. There is no structured, there is no structured city networks there. But informally, we are seeing a lot of collaboration happening at international level. That the last interaction we had a city from Argentina and Brazil and Indonesia and India. We had MCGM people talking to people from probably Buenos Aires or so Jakarta. So such. So I think in this coming decade we'll be seeing a lot of international cooperation at city level. At city level, because if the Dharavi example is of course given, the maybe the what exactly was done at Dharavi can be also learned in maybe Sao Paulo's favelas. So this is a new trend which I think is emerging, in which we are seeing a lot of international cooperation among cities that we are having. And I thought I think I'm already spoken for 15 minutes, so I will just use another 2 and 3 minutes, mostly on conceptual point actually, which and my brethren, they say that it is a wrong way of putting, but I always feel that the city is constrained by only a municipality. A municipality has become a straitjacket for which constrains the energy of a city. So I think probably we require some uh, dismantling of monopolies of a municipality as far as the city is concerned. Of course, yes, there is a political participation and citizens' engagements, but there needs to be more avenues of direct citizen engagements between the city and the citizen, who has a right of emotional connect with the city, which many times is missed. It's a very famous cliche which I keep on saying, that many a times citizen is a voter once in 5 years, a taxpayer once a year, and a complainant for rest of the period. So that shouldn't happen. We should be we should allow the citizens to create that emotional connect with the city, enjoy that fulfilling, and then we see many campaigns that I love Mumbai, I love New York, but that's okay. That is, but still that the isolation point which ma'am said, the cities are getting so isolated. We are a crowd. But the famous sociologists also talked of this thing, that city is getting atomized. In fact, the entire urban study came out of psychology, the negative psychological impact on the citizens since the 1930s or 35. The entire study on cities essentially started from the modern times. Was one of the biggest example of Charlie Chaplin, who came up with this, what would happen in modern times, people losing the essence of humanity or so something. So I mean, maybe I'm straying away from the main topic on that. But I think these are the interconnectedness is so much there in Indian cities, that it's very difficult to isolate one particular point, because it's a web which is connected with everything. I think finance was something which was raised. This is the last three sentences I will use. That there is going to be a tremendous impact on the ability of even the government to tax and bankers to give loans and to repayment. So that entire cycle, I think, will be had to taken care of, and therefore we'll have to go to larger PPP models. We require latest and innovative models of urban financing, whatever the formats are, bonds and markets, because we require the energies to come up all together. I somehow always compare this to, instead of a tug of war which happens in the city arena, we should look like the typical, the Jagannath Rath Yatra. Everybody is pulling the chariot in one direction. Everyone has an opportunity to participate in that and contribute in that. So I think these were the just very shall I say informal sort of some points I wanted to share, because I have used my 15 to 20 minutes, so I think I should stop at that. I will request Sekharji to take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent review. Now, just talking of this, urbanization, a small historical fact which we have to bring is that India was the home to some of the oldest urban areas. If you think of Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, and like this, so many are there, which are all 2000 years old, 500 years old, ages ago. Descriptions are there, and there was no technology of the grade in which we are. Even I am a technical man, still I am saying that is technology only the way forward, or like we say, it's a mindset which is the way forward. Okay, because today technology is available. We should use, not only we should use it, we should abuse it. As a technology man, I can also say that we should abuse it for our use. But is it the only way? There are two things. One is technology. One is other, of course, is a thing that our political leadership, which both of you indirectly mentioned. How do we still plan? Just two sentences now because we are ending. Since we had done so many things which on a much more harsher conditions ages ago, and there is full description, and today nobody is challenging the existence of urban areas in India. I mean, not decades, it is 2000 years ago or 5000 years ago. So how do we still manage? But of course, I will also give a small this thing to the negation of this. They were not having so much population. Okay. Today, population is a biggest dent in our progress. That's why I started by saying that Bombay is 8 million people. It would be the best place in the world. But today, with 20 million people, it is crashing. Somewhere we have to relate the two. We as Indians have a capability to do the best in the world. But the population we cannot today deprive. Population is going to increase. That means every year 20 million more Indians are going to come. That means 20 million more Indian who was born 20 years back, he becomes a teenager today. So he is looking for a job, he is looking for an avenue, and he is rushing to the city, even if others had been there. So with that, how and what way are the trends of thought from planning point of view and to Dr. Megha, and from implementation point of view to Samirji? Just two sentences or 5 sentences each we can conclude today's session. Dr. Megha.
So taking your point ahead, I think there are four pillars which are most important as far as the planning is concerned. The first pillar is the social, which talks about the disadvantaged people, the slums, the community participation, and all such critical aspects. The second pillar would be institutions, which would again include institutions like CBOs, include institutions like SHGs, NGOs, corporate bodies, governments, as well as the municipal corporation, all different kind of institutions that exist within the area. The third important pillar, I think, would be technical aspects, where we talk about services, we talk about technology, we talk about digital, we talk about the other thing. And the last and most important point, which will help these three pillars to come put together, is the finance. So if we have social, technical, institution, and finance, all these four pillars coming together in a very innovative mode, in a very partnership mode, then only it is possible. Any one pillar going high and other pillars going down, it would be a very imbalanced kind of environment. And that is why I always feel that all these four aspects need to be covered as a part of planning. And if we cover these aspects in a very different mode now, because Those routine approaches are dying now. We have to come up with some lot of innovation, some lot of so entrepreneurship also becomes part of the technical aspect. So startups become a part of the technical aspects. Then finance, how to have access to finance to these new institutions that are coming up becomes part of the financial planning. So all these pillars, these four pillars, I think would really help us to bring the impact.
Thank you. Samirji?
It was actually, ma'am has covered most of the entire broad framework of how things to move on. I think in the implementation way, we really say that if there is a will, there is a way. If all of us are convinced that something is to be done, then India has shown that it has been done.
Hmm.
So I think this, as we keep on saying, the unity of purpose. That if the example that I can give was, I can give is that of Swachh Bharat. It is not that Swachh Bharat where always the impact was done on, wash was always an element right from 90s we were doing. But that element did as urban India. If we talk of history of urban India, anyway, I think this would be shown that when there was a will and unity of purpose and the resonance among the entire country, then the tremendous volunteerism and enthusiasm, energy, we could show that something. We could show that yes, it was doable. It is being done. It is being institutionalized. It will continue. So I think that is one lesson which can be learned, that there has to be unity of purpose and a consensus that yes, this is to be done. I'm sure in various other aspects also, we as a nation we will show that execution is indeed possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Samirji. Thank you, Dr. Megha. So to bring our bring our discussion to a conclusion, urban areas are there to stay. Urban areas were there, like I said, more than 2000 years ago. And they are the thing which is going to bring a different grade of relationship between the social environment of the people at large. And there has to be a continuous upgradation. Like I said, it need not totally be dependent on any single item, either money or technology or any other thing. People cannot be deprived just because he's not technically savvy, or for some reason 5G has come and 5G is not there, so I'm not giving you good social environment. That cannot be the case. And there are enough visionaries like both today's speakers who are planning well and who are implementing well. And I believe that all these things, since it's a continuous process, we will not have a one-shot effect being seen, and we will have just to put in a different format. In few ages ago, when there's heavy rain in Bombay, so many deaths happen. So now today all those things have become thing of the past. Today nobody talks of high number of deaths and high number of accidents, and still somebody's expectations are high, even if one vehicle is stuck somewhere that is getting blown out of proportion. That is media's job. Okay, but that has to be understood properly, that even if there's a big cyclone, previously cyclone means, even though the population in those ages were far lower than today, still 20,000, 40,000, 50,000 was a thing which was taken. Today, cyclone means 5 people, 10 people, and that becomes a big news, of course. It should be a big news, but it should not be as big as it is blown today. They should compare the past, present, and this. And last to conclude is, urban cannot be only the cities growing. We have to create urban areas right at the village level. We cannot help creating, satellite cities around cities. Cities cannot be made into a place of only people to live, so that tomorrow if I go out of the house, somebody else has to go from the other side of the house, then only I can come out. That type of congestion cannot be just by putting high-rise buildings. We will not be able to satisfy. Some of the planners have also to address the problem of how to limit without limiting the freedom of travel. So with that, I will close today's thing, and Akram can formally bring it to conclusion. Thank you, Dr. Megha. Thank you, Sumit.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shekhar. Wonderful. Actually, we have three experts, in fact, on this topic. So Dr. Shekhar is no less than an expert on urban planning, urban development, and the kind of back-end activity that he does and he has been doing under his concept of secured governance is also immensely meaningful and relevant. Samir sir and Megha ma'am, wonderful to have your views. A couple of points and then I'll close the session. Number one, the biggest problem or urbanization, as Dr. Shekhar also repeated, is population. And believe me, I have done enough research on population control. India has to control population. There is no doubt and no debate on that point. What is the best engine or best way to control population is also what is very important for us to understand. And I have realized from my research, education is the biggest weapon to control population. You don't have to do any other thing other than educating your mass. You just educate all your youngsters and all the population, like just achieve 100% literacy till graduation, put them into work. There is, you don't have to worry about anything. So Europe, I mean, just go to Europe, the governments give incentives to produce kids. Why? Because the both husband and wife are working. They don't have time for any other thing. They are more career conscious. In India, the day we do it, I think everything is possible. So education can provide immense incentives to urban planning. The second important aspect, which both Megha Mem and Samir Sir has partially, I think, every problem has a simple solution. And I think this solution is, I'm not talking about the other part of it, I'm just talking about the progressive part of it. That is honesty and accountability. I'm not talking about the other term in context to honesty and accountability. We just need to be honest to ourselves, to our duty, and to the country. If we are honest and if we are accountable, nothing can stop India becoming what it deserves to be. And I we our office is in a very posh area in Delhi, and all the building landowners are multimillionaires. And unfortunately, so my office is in basement. When we used to have submerged of water during rain, the landlords have no idea how, and there is a huge sewage line that is in front of our building. The landowners have no idea how to take help from the municipal corporations in the city. So I took the honor and I just simply dialed them and requested them to repair it. And they have totally, over a course of, I think, 15 or 20 days, there is an immense efficiency. But people have no idea about how to take help of the municipal corporations and the government services. They're like electricity, well, BACS. BACS service is one of the best services than many private companies. But how to get the customer care number, how to dial them, how to register a complaint, people don't have much idea. And that's why most of them also suffer. So people also will have to raise their voice in terms of seeking the services delivery that they want from the things. The third is the awareness, which partially I covered. The media will also have a tremendous role to play. I don't know which media covered a debate like this in last 1 month. If you see in India, I don't see any media channel other than perhaps Policy Times or some CNBC, but I don't remember. Even CNBC, and so media will have to pick these issues regularly, because media is also the fourth pillar, unfortunately unregulated fourth pillar of the democracy. So we also need to be very responsible and accountable to our own profession. With this, thanking Samir sir, Megha ma'am for their wonderful contribution. I request all our viewers, if you like the debates and discussions, we don't do debates, we do discussions. If you like our discussions like this, do subscribe to our channel and follow us. Thank you. Keep watching the Policy Time.